Hello, my name is Stevie Barbosa. I will be delivering a 10-minute presentation on poverty in contemporary Britain. I'm going to be talking about the definitions of poverty, how poverty has changed over the years, and the different methods used to measure poverty. Poverty can be described as a lack of resources not sufficient enough to meet an individual's minimum needs. It is not only a lack of income, but also a lack of necessities needed to survive. Poverty affects millions of people every year in Britain. For some, poverty means not being able to buy food, to heat homes, or to pay rent. These people are faced with uncertainty and insecurity, which affects their well-being and quality of life. By defining poverty, it allows us to form a set of standards that can be used to determine the living conditions of some of the poorest people in society and ultimately lead to ways to help them. I'm going to be talking about absolute poverty and relative poverty. Absolute poverty is a lack of subsistence essential for survival. It is not a lack of income. It refers to a lack of basic human essentials such as food, clean water, clothing, shelter, sanitation, and access to healthcare and education. Absolute poverty prevents people from being able to maintain a minimal level of subsistence, which is crucial for their existence. The strengths of absolute poverty are: it is easier to measure and therefore easier to research. As the concept is simple, people are likely to help by donating, spreading awareness, volunteering, and raising funds. The weaknesses of absolute poverty are: it's often criticised for being too simplistic. It assumes there is a universal concept that constitutes poverty. It's difficult to objectively determine what basic needs are, as it depends on the individual and the situation. Relative poverty is when income is below the average income. It's compared to what is seen as the average income needed to maintain the standard of living. Income lower than 60% medium income is seen as poor. People in relative poverty are not in complete poverty, but they don't have the same standard of living as those who are not in poverty have. So they might be able to scrape by on the basics, but they can't afford to do activities that contribute to their quality of life and include them in social participation. The strengths of relative poverty are: it compares the income and lifestyles of the population, identifying those excluded in terms of inclusion and opportunity, making it a tool that can be used in social policies. The weaknesses of relative poverty include: it works as a measure for social inequality rather than an indicator for poverty. It's variable. The average income, if the average income was to change, it could appear that poverty has decreased when the median has fallen, and it could make it seem like fewer people are in poverty when their financial situation has actually worsened. Now we're going to talk about how poverty has changed in Britain. Poverty has always been a challenge throughout history. The main factors have been limited resources, economic inequalities, and lack of social safety nets. Changes occurred through societies, changes have occurred through society's evolvement due to industrialization, urbanization, and changes in the economic system. In the 18th century, the Industrial Revolution brought opportunities. It created jobs that offered better wages than farm workers, and mass production lowered manufacturing costs and made goods more affordable and accessible. In the early 20th century, there was a global economic recession, which significantly affected Britain through mass unemployment, and it brought widespread hardship and poverty. At this time, there wasn't any unemployment support or benefits. The Great Depression led to a need for more robust social and robust safety nets. In other parts of the world, like the US, it led to welfare programs and social reform movements. Britain's response was different. The government tightened controls. It introduced policies such as the means test in 1931, which involved government officials visiting families to assess their eligibility to government support, and if they had a small income or some savings, their benefit could be lowered or completely stopped. The Millennium Development Goals in 2000 were established by the United Nations. It consisted of 8 goals intended to address global challenges around poverty, health, and education. In 2010, the Department of Work and Pensions introduced the 21st Century Focus, which was to tackle the root causes of poverty with a simplified benefit system called Universal Credit. And more recently, in 2019, official figures were shown the number of people in relative and absolute poverty between 2017 and 2018. The Social Metrics Commission found that there was 14.3 million people in poverty in the UK. 8.3 million were working class adults, 4.6 million were children, and 1.3 million were pensioners. Evidently, the means test in recent years, which was renamed as Universal Credit, does not consider all factors and is therefore incompatible with real life expenditure. An analysis of the different methods of measuring poverty. Poverty can be measured in several different ways. 2 commonly used methods are relative income poverty, which defines people as poor if their household falls below the poverty line of 60% of the national median income that year, whereas absolute poverty refers to people as poor if their household falls below 60% of the median income in a base year. So going back several years, the difference is that people in absolute poverty are affected by inflation and soaring rising costs. They couldn't meet their basic needs when the cost of living was cheaper, so they definitely can't meet the threshold now. And that highlights income inequality by showing how excluded from a decent standard of living some people are. For example, not everyone is able to heat their homes during winter. They're unable to access resources such as internet connection. To conclude, different methods of measuring poverty serve different purposes. While absolute measures are vital for addressing basic human needs, relative measures highlight social inequalities. Thank you for listening to my presentation.